Good afternoon. Welcome to the DIR pre-proposal conference. I'm going to allow some attendees to log in, check audio, and I will be with you momentarily. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is May 18th. Thank you for joining us for the DIR-CPO-TMP-556 BMC Helix SmartIT User Interface Customization and Integration Services Pre-Proposal Webinar. Going to go ahead and get started. Want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you would, if you need to make any audio changes, you can do that in your control webinar panel under the audio features, or you may dial in using the phone number passcode that was provided to you in your registration link. All attendees are muted so that I can ensure that you can see my screen as well as hear me. Please raise your hand. Excellent, great. Looks like we've got good coverage there. Now, the chat feature has been disabled. We're asking all of you to please submit any questions in the Q&A. You'll see that image there, right around here, to submit any questions in that control panel there. And we will most likely and may try to respond to that during the Q&A session. And finally, the handout and webinar recording will be made available in an addendum. Thank you again for joining us, and I will turn this over to your procurement lead and point of contact, Jennifer Tram.
Thank you, Tracy. The agenda for today, first we'll do some introductions, then we'll have some preliminary Q&A, then we will go through the background and required services for this RFO. And then I will go through just some general information, point of contact and procurement process. Then we will follow up with the hub subcontracting plan, which will be given by the hub coordinator. We will have some questions and answers and then reminders. Tracy, please go to the next slide. So joining us on the panel today will be Willie Adams. He's the IT Services Improvement Specialist from Information Technology Services section. We will also have Deanna Mickelson, who is a telecommunications specialist from the Customer Service Operations section. We have Bernard Legras. He's the project manager for this RFO. We will have Teresa Williamson, who is the hub coordinator. We will also have Sarah Noel, who is the internal procurement manager, and myself, Jennifer Tram, who is the procurement lead. Next slide, please. When you're submitting questions, please reference the document name, the page number, and the section number. And you will have the written questions. You need to send them by email. You will see my email address there. It's jennifer.tram@dir.texas.gov. And those questions are due, all questions are due by close of business today at 5 o'clock. The questions that we answer verbally during this webinar, they're unofficial until we post the official answers to your questions in the form of an addendum. Next slide, please. I will now turn the time over to Willie Adams, who will give you the background required services.
Hello, my name is Willie Adams, and I am I'm a system analyst at DIR, and I am also the BMC Helix service manager. We use BMC Helix to support a program called the TEX-AN, the Texas Agency Network. The TEX-AN program allows Texas state agencies, higher education institutions, school districts, and municipalities to obtain telecommunications services from various vendors, such as AT&T and Verizon. Since 2011, we have relied on BMC's ITSM, in particular the service management module, to fulfill work orders. In addition, we have invested heavily in customization of forms and workflows to support our use of Helix. Now, with the release of 2008 version of Helix, we want to move from the mid-tier architecture to SmartIT and progressive web applications. Next slide, please. Our current orders process is manual, where the orders rep receive Microsoft Word documents and then data entry them into Remedy work orders. We have been working on a digital transformation project to improve the fulfillment process using BMC Digital Workplace to create a self-service portal. Now we want to transform the fulfillment process by migrating to SmartIT through Helix progressive web applications and progressive views. However, we want to leverage the previous investment in our customized forms and workflows. In a nutshell, here's what we're seeking. First, using the Helix PWA progressive web architecture and progressive views, we want to enable SmartIT to our existing customized forms and workflows. Secondly, using Helix integration services, we want to improve our customized web services to our existing billing system, which is a system called NetPlus. And then lastly, we want to conduct comprehensive testing of the new customizations and the improved integrations. That's it, Jennifer.
Thank you, Willie. I'm going to go over just some basic high-level overview of the solicitation itself. Next slide, Tracy. So the first thing I want to go over was solicitation contents. And I want to make sure everyone's aware there is the RFO, which is one document, but there's also other documents that was also included in the package, the initial solicitation package. So when you're reading through that RFO Word document and it refers to attachment this or attachment that, that's what it's talking about, is these other attachments that were included. When you're opening the RFO document itself, after the title page, there is a page also titled solicitation contents on the second page, and that's where it will list all the attachments that you should see. I will quickly go through them. Attachment A, which is the respondent information executed offer form. Now this form, it's a PDF form, and part of this form, in around the middle of it, there's also a quick checklist of all the documents that you will need for your responses. Attachment B is the historically underutilized business or hub subcontracting plan, and that will be explained later in this presentation. Attachment C is the respondent release of liability. And then there's some accessibility attachments as well, which is attachment D, E, and F, and they're to be filled out if applicable. The last two attachments is a contract for services, which is attachment G, and Appendix A, which is the standard terms and conditions for services contract. And those two attachments are important because that's where when you're taking exceptions to your response or taking exceptions to the standard terms and conditions, you would want to read those to make sure you're okay with all those terms and conditions for services contract, as well as the contract itself. Now, in terms of the response organization, the response requires 4 different packages. And the reason it's separated into 4 different packages is just because you will see that the package for 1 is administrative submission requirements. So all 4 packages are mandatory, whereas the first package is more administrative in nature. So I've listed each requirement for that particular response. And this is also repeated as well in the RFO, as well as your attachment A, the respondent information executed offer form. Okay. The weighted evaluation criteria, which is in section 4.2.2 of the RFO, is these, and they're listed in order of importance. So what that means is the first criteria is the most important, followed by the project work plan and then pricing. So that should help you determine where you spend the most of your time at. They're all important. However, these are listed in terms of their weight. Next slide, please. The point of contact is me, Jennifer Tram, and you have my email address there. Next slide, please, Tracy. And so the reason we keep emphasizing who the point of contact is for the solicitation is because respondents and all respondent representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with anybody else at DIR. The reason this is super important is because failure to observe this restriction may result in disqualification of any related response. And that's why we're very strict about any communications with anybody else at DIR who is not the point of contact. Any additional questions after this webinar may be submitted in writing, and my email address is there. The due date is today at 5 o'clock. Once again, questions and answers verbally discussed will not become part of this solicitation. During the webinar, and this is what it's referring to, is whatever we discuss today will not officially become part of the solicitation until we post it as an addendum. Next slide, please, Tracy. The scheduled events for this RFO, today is the pre-proposal webinar. At 2, the deadline is today at 5. We hope to have the answers posted to the ESPD or soon thereafter by May 20th, which is later this week. The deadline for submitting your response is June 7, and we hope to have an award decision by July 12. I will now hand the time over to Teresa Williamson.
Next slide, please. Tracy, can you hear me? Thank you. My name is Teresa Williamson. I'm with the Hub Department. I'm here to talk about the Hub subcontracting plan. The Hub goal for this RFO is 26%. All respondents to this RFO must complete and submit the Hub subcontracting plan, or the HSP. There are 3 ways to complete your HSP. There's 3 methods. There's method A, when you meet or exceed the Hub goal. Method B is not meeting the goal and subcontracting with either Hubs and non-Hubs, or Hub or non-Hubs only. You must complete the good faith effort, contacting 2 trade organizations and 3 Hub certified vendors within this specific time period. It's required 7 business days for them to respond back to you. Or 3, self-performing, performing the entire contract with your own staff, material, and equipment. The HSP is a pass or fail document. You're required to sign this document in section 4. Failure to complete and submit the HSP may result in disqualification of your response for consideration. The Hub office does give precursory reviews. Our email address is there at dir.hub@dir.texas.gov. Please contact the Hub office with any Hub questions. We'll be glad to walk you through any Hub, give you any Hub guidance, and also to do those precursory reviews for you. Back to Jennifer.
Thank you. Hi, this is Sarah Knoll. So at this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break and we're going to review any questions that may have come in during this presentation. And then we will come back and we may be answering questions after the break, but all questions that have been received to date will be answered in the form of an addendum later this week or potentially next week as soon as we can get to it. So we will be back in about 10 minutes and we will be reviewing your questions. Thank you. Okay, is everyone back? You ready to get going? Okay. So we did receive 3 questions. I'm going to read them here, but we are going to defer answering. We're going to answer in the form of an addendum. And like I said, we're going to try and get that out this week or very early next week. So 3 questions we received. Briefly explain the scope in 2 sentences. Is a customized form being used, or has the work order form been customized? How many custom fields and workflows are existing which need to be ported into the SmartIT PWA? That was the second question. Third question, what BMC Helix product is being used to integrate Helix and third-party system? So again, we are going to type up our answers to those questions and issue an addendum as soon as we can. And I will pass it back over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Sarah. So I just have some final reminders. Tracy, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so as a reminder, the deadline for responses is June 7th. And also, like Sarah said, any questions we received today, and also questions I received by 5 p.m. today by email, we will put them together in an addendum, which will be posted to the ESPD. And the responses, when you're submitting your responses, they must be emailed to my email address. So that's jennifer.tram@dir.texas.gov. And I believe that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you so much for joining us.